So let me start off by saying that we don't intend to try to turn the shed into something it is not. It is not a home. I would argue it's not even a tiny home. It's basically a shed or the size of a small camper. With that said, we do have some plans for the place. Our first two priorities are to get the OSB covered with some sort of siding and to improve the electrical system. Interior projects like bunk beds and insulation, they're just going to have to wait. So the first project that we tackled was removing the wood stove. We knew that we would be installing electric heat, and we needed to remove the stove stack before any siding could be installed. In addition to that, this would give us a little more room inside the shed. So we went ahead and plugged and sealed the hole in the wall where the stove stack exited the structure. And the wall that had the stove stack was also the wall that had the most problems with the OSB. So while we were covering the hole where the stack was, we also covered up the areas where the OSB was deteriorating the most. We just nailed up some very thin gauge sheet metal and ran a bead of caulk along the top of it. We knew this was a band-aid, but it would certainly buy us some time because we knew we wouldn't be able to get the siding on anytime soon. The main goal was just to prevent any further deterioration and to avoid having to replace any of the OSB if possible. Honestly, overall the OSB was in pretty good shape. Even the few areas that looked bad were not as bad as they looked. Even those areas held a nail. So the next project that we tackled was the electrical system. There was plenty of potential with this because there was already an exterior panel at the pole that had some open bays. When we bought the place, there was already a 20 amp circuit and a 30 amp circuit in place at the pole, and they were both wired to exterior receptacles also at the pole. In the past, one of these was used to run a cable to provide power to the shed. Then, there were numerous light gauge extension cords distributing power throughout the shed. All of this wiring was a little undersized, even for the 20 amp circuit, so we wanted to update this as soon as possible. So we decided to add a 240 volt 50 amp circuit at the pole, which ran to a 50 amp receptacle also at the pole. From there, we ran 6 gauge SOOW cable to a 50 amp inlet box on the back side of the shed. Then, from there, we ran 6 gauge wires to an interior 6-bay subpanel inside the shed. A ground bar was added to the subpanel and a ground rod was buried outside. To the panel, we added a 240 volt 30 amp circuit for the electric heater. We also added two 20 amp circuits to distribute power throughout the shed for receptacles and lights. I think I wired about 15 receptacles in that place, so there's power available everywhere. We really didn't need 6 circuits available or 50 amps overall, but we wanted to oversize everything a little bit. So with this setup, there are no permanent utilities connected to the shed. Each time we go up there, we need to run that SOOW cable from the pole to the shed to get power. We are treating the shed like a camper and do not want any permanent utilities attached to it. The property is not a homestead. It's just vacant land with a shed on it. And I think I mentioned in the previous video that our motto at the shed is, let's get some projects done during the day, eat an early dinner, and then go fishing. And that is pretty much what we do. Here's your rod, or I'll stick it in this rod holder. So this was the first time that we had ever fished this lake. It is a fairly big reservoir. I think it's about 600 acres. And my understanding is that most of the lake is not like this section. At the other end of the lake, there's a nice boat launch and not as much timber. But we wanted to check out this section and explore what the fishing would be like with all the cover. We found that this section was much deeper than we thought it would be. In many areas, it was over 10 feet deep. We also found that the exposed timber was probably only 10% of it. casting and retrieving was difficult to do without getting hung up on something. Heck, at one point, I had to cut my anchor line because the anchor got lodged on the bottom and I couldn't get it free. With that said, I'm certain there are some nice bass in here, and it was definitely worth the effort.
Oh. He realized he was hooked. Looks like a smallie. No, it's a largie. Oh, I'm guessing 13. No, it's 14.
So I was so focused on fishing that I didn't notice that the bird making all the racket was actually a bald eagle. Later, when I looked more closely at the video, it was obvious. I remember as a kid it was a big deal to see an eagle in the wild. It is pretty cool that their population has rebounded so much that it's not a big deal to see one today.
Feels like a little better fish. I'm not letting you get in the logs, dude. Although I think you just did. I have to try and let him swim out of there, I guess. Maybe if I come this way, the direction I caught him. I really don't want to lose that lure. I could care less about the fish. Oh, he's taking line now. He got free. There we go. He got free. Don't go back in there, you sucker. No, 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 no. There we go. 16.
Now that I know what to expect, I look forward to fishing this lake again. I will have some different tackle and a different game plan. It was fun, even with all the hang-ups. I think next time we will bring the Lund and fish the other sections of the lake. One of the cool things about this outing is that we saw a badger. I've never seen one in the wild before. As we were driving away from the lake on the 2-track, there it was, standing in the middle of the tracks, just looking at us, about 15 feet in front of the truck. We got to watch it for a minute or two before it ran into its burrow on the edge of the road. That was pretty cool. I will catch you later.